Welcome everyone, welcome to our new series. And you know Theo from the community too, and today we're going to be launching our new Tana Learn Live community session, which we're going to do regularly. We recognize that Tana is very powerful, but also a little bit unfamiliar to some people. So this is a new series that we hope to do regularly that helps people explore some of the foundational features and move on through them with greater depth and precision. So yes, Theo will be driving today's process and particularly covering all the things that we do in the outliner, but I'll also be here to support. And yeah, we thought we'd start with something fundamental in Tana, which is the outliner, and looks pretty basic to begin with if you open up a daily node, but underneath the hood, there's a lot going on and a lot possible. So excited to see how we move through it today. And this is also supported by a Tana Learn page. So we know that Tana Learn is a good reference for people, and clearly we need to keep continuing to build on this, but the outliner itself has a really nice page. So please feel free to refer to that, and we will give you more links to this as well. The goal today is really to help you learn some of the foundations and also get a bit of practice with things in the outliner as we move through it. So we will be exploring how to use the outliner, have some sections where you're actually doing some stuff, and also some mental models and things to explore. So in terms of an outline, we'll start with the mechanics, then we'll talk about tips and tricks and things that you may not necessarily know, and a thing we like to call parallels, which are different ways to do the same thing in Tana. Mental models, the things fundamental to how an outliner will work and how you should be thinking about what is possible in Tana, and also the Q&A section as well. Feel free to ask or any questions throughout the chat throughout when Theo's talking, and I'll be able to answer and jump in as well. Theo, I might hand over to you for the first session, which is on the mechanics of the outliner.
Yeah, perfect. I found it funny that you said the session outline there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I'll share my screen here with my own Tana while we go through this. So yeah, the first part is the mechanics. So I have on the left side here just like a checklist that we can go through while we talk us through this, and can check things off as we go, so we're kind of all on the same page in terms of what we're talking about and what we're learning about. So like Matt said, the outliner, it's so core to Tana. It's like the main view of your information currently, and it's like the first thing you kind of, as soon as you start writing in Tana, you're using the outliner. So let's start with the very basics. I'm sure most of you probably know, but there is some like essential foundational concepts to understand behind them as well. So in Tana, you can write just like Tana at the basics is a text editor, right? Like everyone is familiar with text editors. You can write in them, and then you can press enter to create a new line, and then you can continue doing that and even write long paragraphs. You just cheat here and do something like this. Oh, very long paragraph, and all of that is fine, right? And what makes an outline one step further from just a text editor is that you can indent. And we're also familiar with that from like even Google Docs. Like they have, if you press, or if you make first you format as a bullet point list, and then you tab, you kind of indent bullet points inside of each other. And that we can do in Tana too. So I can indent as many layers as I want in the kind of creating a hierarchy. Now, like I mentioned already, Google Docs and Microsoft Word, for that matter, OneNote, Notion, Obsidian, all of these tools are kind of, they give you some outliner format where you have bullet points and indentation. But what makes Tana a little bit different is that these individual bullet points are nodes. I'll just move this above. We kind of covered the outliner basics. It's writing, it's creating new lines, which are bullet points, and then it's indenting, and also outdenting with shift tab. So tab and shift tab to indent and outdent. But yeah, like in Tana, we also refer to these bullet points, we call them nodes. And the reason for that is that they are themselves a piece of information, and they live in relationship to other pieces of information. So we'll get back to more about that later. But one simple way to see this is if I select the node, and I can do that, for example, with escape. So if I'm on this, in Tana you can write, and I press escape, I select it. And what you see is that in Tana you can write is selected, but also create a new line, and that long paragraph is selected too, with like a lighter shade of blue, because it's part of that parent node, as we call it. So we're getting a bit into the node relationships here. We can say, for example, that this is node. We can call this one node. And if we think about that as kind of the center, create a new line is the parent of node, because it's one hierarchy level up. And in Tana you can write is the grandparent of node, because it's 2 level in the hierarchy up. Currently, node doesn't have any children or descendants underneath it. But if I tab, I create a child of node. So this long paragraph is now a child of node. So that's the basics of the outliner, and also kind of the thought of nodes. And we'll come back to this a bit more. And now I thought we would take, just so everyone, I want this to be to some extent an interactive session. So I want some text to work with, and I want all of you to have some text, some outline to work with when I go through the rest of these things. So I thought we'd take like 1 minute to do some writing, each of us. And you can write wherever you want in Tana. You can either click here to go to the day and write just right there, and tab and indent and do that kind of stuff. Or you can click here to just create a new node, which will also end up on your today page. Any of those two, and then let's just take 1 minute to write. I have one prompt here. You can write about other things too, but what are you working on right now? That's what I'll be writing about. And then also, instead, you could also write about what's your morning routine, for example, but try to like break it down, think what information belongs where. So yeah, sounds good, Matt?
Sounds great. I'll do the timer too. So I'll give everyone a minute and a half, and we'll feel free to write.
Great.
Okay, starting now. All right. I think I put you on mute there, Theo. Yes, that was time up.
You heard my typing, I guess.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. So I've written up some. Did you have a good session, Matt? Did you get to reflect a bit?
Yes, I might share my screen quickly. I did what I should have done to begin with, and rather than use a kind of elaborate presentation software, I just used the actual outline in Tana for our session. So
nice.
just quickly put that together, which is good.
Good one. Yeah, so I wrote some things I'm working on, a bit cryptic, a bit cryptic, but I promise you'll know soon some of these things. So yeah, let's move on from here. I guess all of you have written some things now or have something from before. I guess you all or pretty much all have content from before, which you can play with. Like if you write something now, you can also delete it later. We're not going to do too much damage. So first, next thing on the list here is collapsing. I think this is also a very simple, basic, and core concept, but it's like depth. It's depth to it as well. So just with command up and down arrow on control up and down arrow, we can collapse nodes. So now I just did that on working on there, and I can expand it again. You can also do that for like sub nodes, children nodes like that, and expand and collapse. So we can do that at every level. And this is like seemingly very simple, but it's something that the outliner really enables. Like you can't really do this in a flat document because you don't have that structure that you can open and close individual kind of levels in the hierarchy. And I think this, like in this example, maybe it's not so apparent, but I can, for example, if I decide to actually outdent these, and because all of these things are things I'm working on, so maybe I don't need that top level parent node. But here I can, if I can have all of them collapsed, and then if I'm only working on the exciting longer term for Tana, then I can expand that, and I can kind of stay focused on the information that is relevant for the moment. Maybe I'm looking for something here that I want to see when I'm working on the bottom node. So this collapsing concept is really core and a really nice way and feature of the outliner. And then similarly, it's also a very core and kind of basic function, but also something that the outliner allows is that with shift command up and down, we can reorder and move nodes around. So we have shift tab and tab to indent and outdent, and then we have command shift up and down arrow to move the outline. And what we're doing here is not just like reformatting and reordering text. Maybe reordering was the wrong word here. We're actually moving the node we're selected. We're moving it to a different location in this tree structure. So it as soon as I do tab, it has a new parent, like it's somewhere else in the structure of information. And then as soon as I move it down, it's also somewhere else in the structure of information, which I think is it's seemingly very simple, and you should think about it very simply, but it is a very powerful concept, even though it's very simple.
As someone who's written a lot previously in Microsoft Word, I probably shouldn't say that too loud when I was younger. Quickly rearranging like a chapter of a book compared to in an outliner, incredibly difficult work and a lot of copy pasting and so forth. So yeah, very fast as an alternative.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, imagine these are chapters and I'm collapsing them down, and I just like, let's move them up and down. I was gonna save this for the tips and tricks section, but there are things in the command line, like I can say right top, and I can move it to top directly. For example, if you're working with like a huge outline, things like that can be really, really powerful. So same with command K for the command line, and then bottom, I'm moving it to top and bottom, like instead of doing one by one, for example. So that's yeah, cool one. Yeah, so that was reordering, and this next one I think is similar to the two above, but it really underlines the nodes concept that we talked about in the beginning. So zooming in Tana is what happens when you click the bullet of a node. So if I like now I'm zoomed into this exploring the outliner, but if I click the redacted launch coming soon, that will be zoomed in, and that will now become the panel name. And the contents inside of that node will be the content I see here. And if I write something new here, and then I can go back in panel here, you will see that when I expand it, the new thing is there, of course, which just makes sense. Like it's the same node, but we're zoomed into it. And I can keep doing that. I can zoom into write something new and focus on that instead. So it's a really like you have expand and collapsible sections of information, and you can kind of move in and out. So it's a very like, I like to think of it as a zoomable graph. And we'll come back to the graph later. We're kind of talking about hierarchical tree structures now. But yeah, this idea of being able to click and zoom in and like always stay in focus on certain information is really interesting. And just keyboard shortcuts for this too, which I really love, is command period and command comma. So I can just do command period to move in to the one I'm focused on, and command comma to move back out where I was before. So it's really nice way to, yeah.
But that actually is something, as a discussion that came up in the team recently, was how many, or to what extent do you work with the node you were working on zoomed in compared to kind of seeing the structure of the parent and the children? Maybe in the chat, do you work in a zoomed in node, or do you see your outline as part of your work as well? Product team were asking about that and seeking some feedback recently. So yeah, feel free to add some.
That's a great one. Yeah, that's a great one. And I think it's like the flexibility of being able to do both is really interesting. Like I think maybe the different like what makes it different is if you want to look at it in context, in some context, or if you want to look at just that thing. And we'll actually come back when we talk about references next. We'll come back to like maybe you want to see this one thing in context of other things and work in that context. And yeah, reference is very key concept in that.
Just quickly, I might ask some questions now just in the chat. I think they're probably getting ahead. Lee and Travis are both asking, when you publish an outline, so using publish, nodes are collapsed by default. How can you force Tana publish to keep nodes open?
Yeah, like there isn't really a way to do that. We do have headings.
Yeah.
So you can toggle heading on a node. So either by, if you're at the very start of the text of a node, you can do exclamation mark. That creates a heading. And you can also do it in the command line, toggle heading, and that will keep it expanded. But we're like, we haven't on the product side landed completely how we're supposed to figure this out. I think in the future that won't be the way to say if you want to have information expanded, visible or not. Like we will have some better way of defining that. But that is the current way. Yeah. Was there other questions too, Matt?
Yes, Glenn making a comment about using opening nodes in panels. So yeah, shift click opens in panels, right?
Yeah. So that like the parallel section, I was gonna think.
Okay. Yep.
To say that, but let's take it now because it's really relevant to like the zooming thing. Because it's basically kind of the same concept. Like here, like what you're seeing on my screen now is that I have two panels open. So I have two nodes that are zoomed in next to each other. And then they're both like at the very top, you see a tab. So this is this is from browsers, right? Like we all know tabs. So I have a tab with two nodes in each their panel zoomed in. And the way I do this is that when you click, you just zoom in the current panel. But if you shift click, you create a new panel with that node zoomed in. So you zoom in, but you also put it in the new panel. And command click creates a new tab. So then I have two different tabs and I can move between those. So that was really good. Parallel, Glenn. That was perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Another one from Skip Angel, just making the reference to the fact that understanding the difference between nodes in Tana versus notes in other tools was a paradigm shift. And there's really no concept of notes in Tana. Instead, it's a perspective of searching and zooming into all of your nodes.
Yeah.
So I guess it's
like I think there is something very deep about this, and maybe we'll cover a bit of that in the mental models section. But there is something of a paradigm shift with Tana, which comes with some negative parts of it being like new to everyone. When you first get into Tana, it's like, okay, I need to kind of grok some new concepts here because it's different from everything else. And some apps, I guess, have similarities, like Roam or other kind of outliner apps. But most apps are way more linear in terms of how they deal with information. While Tana is it deals with, like, here's another parallel, but Tana, you can view the same information in many ways. Like we have views, right? And Outliner is just one of those views. But I think Outliner is special because it's very native to how the information is actually structured. So I can view this as a table now, but the most native way to think about the structure of what I have here, at least, is the outline. And that's like the very core to how Tana is like built up.
Yep, absolutely. Thinking about it in hierarchy, in the sense that you're working with atoms and you're building things up, and you're not starting with structures first. But let's deal with that a bit later. Yeah. Okay, a few more questions coming in, but let's move through to the next bit, and then we'll get to these in the next section too.
Sounds good. So the next bit is like these three, they're all very connected, so I'll kind of do them all together. But we kind of, so far we've made a very simple outline. Maybe I should like make at least 3 indentation levels. But this is all kind of a tree structure where everything lives in this tree. All the information is part of this exploring the outliner node and underneath. What references makes us or allows us to do, which is also like a super key concept of Tana, is that the default copy paste behavior isn't duplication of information. Instead, it's reusing information. So if I'm in this, making it easier for new users to navigate Tana node here, and I do Command C, and I can go to the bottom, just the bottom of the outline, and Command V, I've now created a reference. And I'm sure a lot of you know that if I make an edit here, that edit will show also for the reference. Or if I remove that and make an edit on the reference itself, that also changes the original. So they are synced. They are the same node, basically. They're just in 2 different locations. And we distinguish between the original location of the information versus the reference of that information. And the same node can be referenced in as many locations as you want. It cannot be referenced twice in the exact same location, because that never makes sense. But you can reference it many, many places, and updates will show in all of them, which looks kind of crazy when you have that many visible in the same view. So that's like the basics of references. And also, if you see, if I like this node, the original location of making it easier for new users to navigate Tana is just a bullet point. But these references they have like a dotted outline, which is indication of it being a reference. So dotted outline around the bullet means this is a reference node. We also have this blue. When I make the original node, we can just start typing right away. But if I select the reference, any of the references, you can see this blue outline around the bullet. That's something we call soft lock. And it makes it so that it's more easy for you to know whether you're editing something that originated another place. So it's quite easy to edit references to. You either double click to start editing it and go into like editing mode, or you just press enter. But it creates that kind of, we don't want people to make edits that they didn't intend to make all over the graph. And you can also see, I get this yellow editing in 5 places also to say that this is something that we have referenced many places around the graph. And you know that you're making edits in several places at once. Final thing on the references, if I write something inside of here, you can see that all of the references now got, and if I collapse this one, they all got to like an outline. and we've seen that before when we collapse. The outline, or not, the background color behind the bullet means that there is content within the bullet or within the node. And you see the same happens with all of the references too, because when you write something that is inside of a node, that becomes part of all of the reference nodes too. I can write something new here, and that also becomes part of all of the reference nodes. Everywhere it's referenced. So that's basic to references. And now I can see all of my references here in one view, everywhere I reference this. But I can also go, for example, to my day node, and then I can see, make a reference. And like so far, I've just done Command C and Command V to paste a node from one place to another. But we also have a @ if you type the @ symbol, you get this model where you can search all of your nodes throughout your graph. So here we can say outliner, and then we can find all of the things that we've written about the outliner, for example. And then we can select it to make a reference to it. Now, that was a bad example because that node was already here. So I created an inline reference because it was already in that location. But we can do, for example, the traveling to SF and reference it there, and that will then show up. Cool. So that was the references, and very, very similarly, we have inline references. So let's go back to the today node and say, today, I can do today, I'm working on making it easier for new users to navigate Tana. So here, this is an inline reference, and the difference between an inline reference and then just a reference is that now the reference is put inside of another node within like the text of the node. So it's exactly the same, and even if I press enter here, you can see that I kind of shifted that reference to a new line, and it turned it into a normal reference. If I press backspace again, it goes into the node and turns it to the inline reference. So it's almost like it's just two ways of displaying the same thing. Like it's all just a reference, but when it's inside of a node, we call it an inline reference. And this looks like a URL link, and it pretty much is. When you click it, you go to it, which is expected. And you can also do things like I right-click it here. I can do expand to see the reference in place and edit it in place. Let's outdent that, for example. And then when I go here, the edits are, of course, synced everywhere. That's the basic of inline references. And then the final thing is reference section. So now that I have referenced this, making it easier for users to navigate Tana several places, both as an inline reference as references, we'll see that at the bottom, Tana instantly knows that where this has been referenced before and shows me that. So it has been referenced in all of these locations, and I can here open them up to see exactly where. And it has been referenced in line in this exact text. And I can see the text and also even the breadcrumbs of where that thing lives. Cool. I think that was kind of the gist of the mechanics.
Excellent. Let's take a few questions. I'm not getting through all of them, but I'll run through a few here. So firstly, Rachel, when I have two panels open, I think it's going back to the panel discussion. How do I know which one is focused? Sometimes I click on the outside link and it goes to the wrong panel.
Okay, yeah. Right now we can see an example of that, I guess. It's like this one is focused, and when you see that this one isn't focused because it's a bit faded out. I think that's the main way currently. Do you have anything other to add to that, Matt?
I've never really noticed it as an issue myself, so I assume, yeah, no, nothing really standing out as useful for that. But yeah, Rachel, feel free to expand if there's particular context or times that happens. It might be useful to know too. Glenn's asking too, can you discuss the difference between a node and an entity? I think we'll probably have more to say about entities in the future, but they're kind of groundwork at the moment, yeah.
I saw that question come up in the community too. Yeah, it's still being worked on, and it's might be part of this in some sense. It's a very interesting concept, and I think it allows for a lot of new ways to use Tana, and powerful. Like, it's a powerful concept, which we'll get back to.
Yeah, entities are kind of intermediate steps in the hierarchy, you could say, or ways to think about different levels. So yeah, or more important classes of information. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. Yeah,
I think I'll add to the entities thing, because it's the idea is that you don't really need to think about it too much.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll come back to the idea of like top down versus bottom up. I think Tana allows for a very bottom up workflow where you think about the information and don't worry too much about the structure. But you are allowed, like, you can do both as well. Like, it's very flexible in that way. And entities is one of those things where it's a way to make Tana smarter without you having to think. Like, entities are something Tana recognizes by itself, and you don't need to worry about to make Tana smarter for you. That's kind of the background to them.
But good point, Glenn. And yes, that distinction between nodes and entities will become clearer. I think for now, we would like people to think in nodes fundamentally, and the entity stuff will develop as well. A few questions about, is there a keyboard shortcut to insert date? I guess just @ is the most obvious one.
So there is command line insert date this year, for example, and you can use that. Or the most obvious one, like you said, is or not most obvious, but the most flexible maybe is like @ and then in 2 weeks, and then you get like it has some natural language capabilities, which is nice. But you also have the command line insert date.
Can you set a custom keyboard shortcut for the command line insert date if you do it at regular interviews? Yeah.
So insert date and then Command Shift K, and then you can record any shortcut you want, and that goes for all the command line commands.
Yeah, Lee. So if you're doing that regularly, I think that's an FAQ. I'll quickly find a link for that. Rachel, okay, that helps. I'll look for the darker text. Great on the title thing. Glenn with some things about you can reorder the panels and drag and drop, which is good. Yes,
that's a really good one. Yeah, if we want to move the mechanics over here, we can do that, and we can resize, of course. So more coming on this too, but the basics are there, and it's really nice.
Great, excellent. Tom saying that we're moving too fast. Tom, we'll send out the recording. Yes, we've got a lot to cover, so apologies if it's too fast for some, but we'll you can watch it in detail again as we go. So that's good. So Min is asking, from moving from Obsidian, I used to do keyword to create links among my notes. How do I do that in Tana? So just a double bracket to create links.
So I'm not sure whether you're talking. So we can do double brackets. It works exactly like at the @ symbol, and we've done like we did not have that before, but since other people are coming from other tools where the double bracket is the standard, we made that so you can also use that, and that creates kind of like you said, keyword. But that's create references in the Tana language, which we've been now. There's no distinction between the double bracket and the @ mention, just to make that clear. But we also, we're not going to talk about super tags here. And that's probably not what this is about either.
No, I think, this was more like the @ reference equivalent to,
exactly.
Bidirectional link.
One thing I want to mention here actually is, I can say, okay, let's say working on excited long term for Tana, and then I want to make a new feature. I want to make feature as a node. I can do that also straight from that mention. So I'm creating a reference to feature, but feature doesn't exist yet. So therefore, Tana says, okay, do you want to create it? And I can do that right there. And that creates a link to the feature keyword, if you want to use that term. And the feature will now have a reference section with that where it's been inline referenced.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. A few other comments and questions here. So first one is Rachel is us. I use Tana to track my tea collection. Right now I'm tagging my teas in my day page as an inline reference. So I assume it's things like you'd have an at reference to peppermint tea. What are you drinking there, Theo? You've got like a chai tea or whatever. So yeah, is there any advantage to tagging the whole node instead? I mainly want to be able to see at a glance all the days I drank that particular tea. I think you're referring to using a super tag as like by tagging. Yeah, we probably don't want to get too much into super tags in this session. We will do it in a future session, but certainly both ways have affordances, meaning it's very simple to use inline reference and quickly record your T use there, but you could also set up a more advanced structure using super tags that will allow you to simply tag it as T, select the option field for the specific type, and then you'll be able to see that as well. So yeah, both fine. I'll send out some references in the chat as well.
I love that use case though. That's great. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep. Let's keep going.
Awesome. Yeah. So the next section is the tips, tricks, and parallels, I guess. We've already talked about some of them, but we do have some more. So we in terms of shortcuts, we've talked about a lot of the things about like navigating the outliner. But also we do have one interesting thing is these outliner lines, which show you like the hierarchy level that nodes are on. So very exciting is on the same level as write something new, which we can see by that line there. And redacted is on the same line as traveling here and all of these other ones. That's a nice thing, but you can also click them, which is a nice little tip. So clicking them expands everything on that level. And I can quickly expand and collapse like that. So that means also if I have exploring the outliner open, I can just like click to expand all of those sub things here, which is really nice. Similarly to that, when I'm on the panel top here, I can use command down and up and down like we do for collapsing and expanding like this. But I can do it here to expand one level at a time and collapse one level at a time. So I'm clicking command down arrow several times, and for each time I'm expanding and collapsing each level, which I think is quite a nice one. You can do the same on like individual ones, you see here. And then we also have command line stuff like expand, it's similar, but expand all, which does that, and collapse all, which is that. And we have, what else do we have? We have, the move to top, move to bottom, move up and move down, which is nice. We haven't talked about, and we won't talk about other moving things, but you can also move nodes anywhere in your graph. Like we've talked about a lot about moving things around in the outline, but we also have like move to and move with finder, which like moves it anywhere, which is also kind of part of the outline, but more, anywhere in the tree, anywhere in the graph.
Also, my favorite, I just wrote below, and then below, if I don't know if you're covering that, but if you want to make
exactly
nodes.
I forgot about those. Are amazing. Now I just remember a few others as well. But if I want to like do basically what I'm doing now, so I select all of these and then I indent. Instead of doing that, I can do Command K on this top one and say indent nodes below or right below like Matt does, and then I'll do all of that at once. Or I can do the opposite, which is called hoist. Hoist children to siblings, and that outdents everything below. Yeah, and then similar to that, we can do select children to if we have a lot of children. So if I want to select all of those really quickly, I can do Command K, select children, and I can do I can do like this, select node and siblings. So I select the one I'm on and all of the ones in the same level in the hierarchy, which is really nice sometimes. So yeah, there's a lot of things in the command line that is really useful, I think. Do you have any other on that, Matt? Any other shortcuts or command line? I think I covered everything.
No, I think that's pretty much it, except I probably use escape to highlight node.
I briefly mentioned that, but yeah, that one is really nice. I personally use shift down or shift up to select the node, but escape immediately gives you like the menu. So maybe a bit unintuitive, but escape for selecting and giving you a menu to do different operations. And you have like things like indent and outdent here and tag and move. And
yeah, I think I would use that probably 50, 60 times a day just to hit escape, move nodes, delete nodes, whatever.
That's great.
Yeah.
Next one is AI chat in context. I won't spend too much time on these different sessions. They're worth different sessions alone. We already covered tabs and panels, which is good. And we covered this one. AI chat in context is basically what I wanted to say is that when you are on an empty node or a placeholder node or like an empty node, it says press space for AI or / to insert. So basically, the reason why I feel like this is a very relevant parallel is that when you create a chat in Tana this way, we automatically use references, which we've learned about in this session, to insert that context. So the context that is sent to AI is like the parent of where I did the chat. So if I do the chat inside of here instead, you can see that making it easier for users to navigate Tana is there. And also, since we've referenced that many places, it has a reference section. We also include the references as well in the context. So here you can write anything and start the chat with the context that you're in. And it kind of follows the outliner, right? So wherever you want to make a chat, whatever context you want to have in is what will be included.
A few have just seen you create a checkbox with a keyboard command.
Yeah. Nice.
So,
I think it's a very, very interesting parallel. I didn't want to cover it in this one, but Command Enter to create or make it a checkbox, or Command Enter just to what is it called? Like cycle. Cycle through the checkbox state. So once to get the checkbox, twice to get the done checkbox, and 3 times to remove it again. So I can just cycle between those. And we have a feature in Tana where if I do this, you can see that we get a progress bar on the parent. So this is actually very relevant because it follows the outline, right?
Yeah. So just for those, if we were going too fast, it was essentially just highlight the node by escape or shift down and highlight all 3, and then Command Enter once creates a checkbox for all 3.
Yeah. So I do shift up and down to select stuff. I haven't talked about that at all. I'm a keyboard warrior, but you can obviously use the mouse to drag as well, both in this way to make like a selection like that, or just drag down like that, which is really nice. And let's stop talking about progress bars.
Yes.
For now.
Okay. All right. Yes. Great.
Cool. The last one was just menus. I think it's really something we're working on a lot in the product too. Is like you should be able to have a relevant menu for wherever you are. So by menus, I mean, for example, when you right click. So I just right clicked on the panel header there, and I get a set of actions I can do on that node. And you can do that on any node at any level, and you see that node gets selected, and you can do things on that. So open it in the panel, for example. And just another menu is when you select text. That's like right click, you get it on the node level menu. And when I select text here, I get like text selection menu, which is also very relevant. And obviously in a text editor, you need things like, some formatting options like this. So that's where you have that. I think that's, let's use the checkbox to complete the progress bar.
Yep.
And then move on. Cool. Next section, Matt, it's we're moving on to some mental models and going into that a bit, no?
Yep, let's do that. I just wanted to make sure I got everything in the chat.
Oh, amazing, great.
Yeah, there's a few things that were coming up. Command lines are awesome. Travis says, yeah, there's a low power in the command line, and it's a little bit unwieldy in the sense of how much is in there, but that's just because over time it's pretty valuable for so many different use cases.
I remember early days. I'm not saying everyone should do this, but I remember just like doing Command K and just scrolling through and trying everything. I found that really fun, and I found a lot of interesting things that helped me a lot by doing that. That has like stuck with me since then. So yeah, I think that's a nice way to learn as well. Just try stuff.
Yeah, agree. Just to explore. I think I've got pretty much everything. A few comments in the chat that just take as comments rather than questions, which are good. What's the open right side menu shortcut again?
Yeah, I think that's opening in a new panel, I'm guessing. So I can right click and click open a new panel, or I can shift click the bullet, or yeah, that's basically it. Command M also works, but yeah, there's a lot of ways. But I like shift clicking the bullet. That's nice.
Yep.
It's really efficient.
Yep, me too. Shift click. Yep, and command click to open the tab.
Yeah.
Coming from craft after just like there are no headings inside a document. Well, we do have headings, but I think not in the traditional craft sense. I think, which is pretty much what like a page is in other apps, right?
I think it's a good segue to the first mental model, Matt, isn't it?
Yes. Okay, let's jump in there. All right, I'll quickly share my screen and wanted to just help people understand some of the fundamental things about Tana a little bit more, and perhaps Theo and I will just have a conversation. Feel free to jump in at any point. We're not really.
I'll be all over the chat from now on. So
yeah, great. So one of the fundamental ideas of Tana is that you write information and not documents. And I guess we've covered this already in many different ways, but we don't have the traditional idea of pages in Tana. Everything is a node, and everything can have children as well as be a child itself of a parent.
I would even say like we could phrase it as everything is a page. Like it's kind of the same, right? Like as soon as you zoom into a node like we looked at earlier, like that becomes kind of the page, and you have content within it like you're used to having with pages. And you can have text that is formatted inside of there, and so it's interesting.
Yeah, I think of it as like comparable to things like atoms. Like you can build atoms into structures, etc., and probably the same. You can build nodes into documents, or or books, etc. So it's very much not. It's at the base level of a hierarchy where you can build things upwards with those information, but it can be disorientating for people coming from a traditional document view, which is kind of you set the container and then everything within it just lives in the container, which is a different kind of view. And there's some downsides to that, clearly. Why is this a thing for us, Theo? Like, why is nodes and working in nodes without pages a fundamental idea of Tana? And what does it make possible that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do with just docs?
Yeah, I think it's going, and Thomas, I will answer your question in the chat too. But so I think it's back to where I started a bit, where it's like the structure of your information or the outline enables a different structure of information that allows you to create a lot of different views on that information. So it's It's a richer structure of information that allows for both humans to kind of view it in different ways very dynamically. So one really key feature, which we won't dive into, but is really nice in Tana, is that you can view the same information in many ways. Just we learned the command line, so Command K on any node and say view as, and then whatever view you want. And because we have that underlying structure, and we also have the super tags in the fields, which is very key in here. We have that underlying structure. We can view the same information in many different ways. If you say to a flat Google document to view it as a table, for example, you wouldn't know what to do with that. Like, Google would be like, what? I cannot view this flat page as a table. I don't know what you mean. But if you have the right structure of things, that becomes much easier because the data model is very adaptable. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I think so. Probably other analogies. Think of things you do in Excel where you have particular information in each cell. You don't necessarily write the whole spreadsheet into one cell, which is essentially what a traditional document would be, but instead by isolating particular information in different cells, you can remix that in different ways. Yeah, the idea of knowledge is a recombinatorial process, meaning that you would have particular sentences that you could use in multiple places. That allows you to not duplicate effort, but also the idea of having direct links between those. In a sense, if you update one, they update everywhere. Very, very powerful, different ways to think about knowledge. Yes, that's right. Think about every node as possible atomic note. True, although, yes, that's true. Good.
So I'll just address Thomas's question here because I said something here that was a bit confusing. Is that what do you mean by you can have formatted text inside there? So what I said was you can, we kind of said everything is a page, and you can, because you can zoom into it and it becomes the panel. And then I said you can have formatted text inside of there. And basically what I mean is what Matt is doing now. So he zoomed into the mental models, and then he created a heading and added some other formatting. And Craft is a great product it's very good for documents, and maybe in the future Tana will be as good for linear, the feeling of a linear document and that kind of freedom of linear writing and structuring, in addition to having the structure underneath. I think that's a really interesting idea. But yeah, you can do formatting like this, which is also really nice.
Yeah, excellent. Next one is that information at any scale. So the concept of an outliner allowing you to recognize or have contextual information when you need it. So rather than having to zoom into, scroll to page 72 of a book, instead you can quickly zoom in and out of information and be able to traverse information quicker, which is a very powerful thing. So what do we mean by information at any scale, Theo?
Yeah, I think you touched on it now, and we touched on it when we talked about the zooming in. When I zoomed into that node that I have referenced in several places, I think I'm getting to the contextual recall here. I zoomed into that, and Tana showed me a reference section. I think you have references here too, and maybe not open them because from the Tana workspace. But it's the ability to set the focus that you want to have. So that's the zoomability, you can go in and out, and based on where you are, different context is relevant. And this is a very powerful concept, and one that is very even more powerful when you, again, we cannot have a session of Tana without talking about super tags, I think. But when you have that layer of structure as well with super tags and fields, those contextual relevance is a lot easier to surface.
Agree, and things like related content, or in the future other ideas like that, which surfaces the right information relevant to that particular node automatically, or potentially that you've set up previously, that would be a really powerful way to think about your information, rather than having to kind of work your way to a particular point, being able to have that information on hand, it really makes a difference. And yes, yeah, we'll do things like search nodes in the future, which are very powerful, clearly. Final one is hierarchies and networks together. So this is perhaps one of the things that is confusing to new users in Tana. And I guess some of the comments about like pages is an example of that. But what do we mean by hierarchies and networks together, Theo?
Yeah, I think like you were the one that came with this, and you have it from another great thinker or book or something, right? But it's a really, I think it's a really great framing for this thing. Like a way I'm thinking about it, and I kind of talked about in the mechanics section, is that at the beginning we were kind of creating a tree structure. I like to think of it as a tree, like I think a family tree where you have the node relationships is very, very good with that, where you have like parent and children and grandparent and ancestors and descendants. So like the outliner creates a tree, but as soon as we introduce the references and the inline references, that tree becomes a graph. So you have like a tree structure, but then you start making connections from different nodes in the tree to different places. And all of a sudden you have like links across different branches. And then you can kind of think of it as a graph structure with like the typical thing you have in mind when you think of a graph of nodes with lines between them and so on. And that's like, it doesn't feel like it when you work in Tana in some sense, but that's kind of what you're doing, even though it's very simple on the surface. You're building hierarchies and you're building networks at the same time. And yeah, that's super powerful.
Yeah, agree. The book is referenced, it's called Glut by Alex Wright, and it talks about how we think in two fundamental modes. We think in hierarchies, meaning we do that taxonomy style thinking of structuring information upwards and downwards, meaning this is nested within this, like the cupboard contains all my spices, the spices contain this, where I can go and get it specifically. And that's how we fundamentally think. And it is an important part of how we chunk information down and make sense of the world. So hierarchies have proved very important in terms of how we think, but also networks, meaning that we can see connections between particular ideas and how they show up in different places. So the idea of an inline ref in Tana, where you're using it in multiple different places at once, or making connections between different things, isn't necessarily a hierarchy, but instead a network of information. You refer to it as a graph, which is essentially when you, or the terminology we use for when you've got a network of information or nodes linked together.
I think Skip is also saying like a good concept here to think about is like top down versus bottom up.
Yeah.
So they say that they use their home node as like a top down organization, and then they use the today node, the today page, as like a bottom up organization. And in some ways, like you can think of the top down way of thinking as hierarchy and bottom up as a network. But I can also see that you work bottom up to a hierarchy and top down to a network too. Like it's interoperable, those four things, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is really cool things.
And I think this is maybe the power and the difficulty of Tana, in the sense that we have both tools in one, meaning you build hierarchies with things like super tags where you set fields, and they are essentially a taxonomy, a top-down structure for your information. But then you also work bottom up in the way of creating links and networks.
So Rachel is asking, what does bottom up mean? Do you explain that, Matt?
Bottom up means essentially that you don't start with a structure, but you let the structure emerge from the things that happen. So for example, Rachel, was it you that was doing the tea example previously? Like it would be like you start drinking tea one day and you think, oh, I'm going to try this new tea, and yes, I'm the tea girl. You start drinking tea one day and think, I'm going to try peppermint tea, and write down peppermint tea in your graph, and then 3 days later you have a random conversation and get a different type of tea, and then you write that down, and all of a sudden over time you start to getting all these categories of tea, and then you think, okay, I'm going to structure this as a hierarchy. You don't start out thinking I'm going to build a like taxonomy of all the teas of the world and then see what but I try.
I have a line back to the first mental model, actually, like write information, not documents, right?
Yeah.
If you think in documents, which can be like, that's hierarchies in a way, like can be really useful to think, okay, I want these folders and I want these files to be in these folders, or I want like this top level nodes and these nodes underneath, and that's kind of the top down way of thinking. But bottom up is kind of thinking the information first. I just want to get the information out of my head into the tool, and then things structure can emerge over time. And Tana really tries its hardest to be good at that, and we will be even better as well. So really exciting way of thinking about information.
Yeah, excellent. And yeah, Thomas says when you include some graphical representation of data structures and interconnections. Yeah, we have references, ref sections at the moment. We know we've got to get better with illuminating like the network and the hierarchy, and clearly that's a difficult or laborious task, like building hierarchies. So no doubt there'll be AI help with that at some point. But certainly, absolutely, seeing the connections is really valuable. Yes, yeah, good for emerging interests until that you don't realize are going to get bigger until they do. Exactly right, Rachel. Yep. And then at some point you create a hierarchy for that. You create a super tag that you understand more about what the nuance in your information is, or the different types of tea, or where they're from, or origin, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's the power of Tana, in that we have both of those inside the one tool. Most tools are very hierarchical in the sense they just tell you how to do things and say, no, this is the hierarchy. Like, no, we only have these two input fields and you just put information there, and if it doesn't fit, so be it. Or it's the other way, where it's like just really open-ended and they don't actually deal with hierarchy at all, meaning like a Google Doc says, we're not giving you hierarchy, just add information, and that's all you can do with it. So to have both is both the power as well as probably a little bit of the learning curve in Tana, but you've got to kind of work out how to navigate them both.
Yeah, I think the way you think is kind of formed by the tools you use. So it's kind of like the idea of like augmented thinking. So like Tana being very flexible allows your thinking to be flexible too. Like the more options you have to kind of like, I see some, like Jose, for example, says that the learning curve can be hard because there are a lot of options in terms of how to think and how to use the tool. But there's also a lot of power in that, and it's our job to kind of help you with choosing the right thing at the right time, and we will get better at that. But the like what Matt says, the flexibility to do a lot of these things, I think is really important, because that allows us to put whatever is in our brain and transfer it into the tool without having to like be conformed by the tool's like limitations, which very often is the case.
Absolutely, and I agree with the comment there. Organizing comes with super tags and node hierarchy together. So it's both. And Thomas, I think of Tana as being flexible, actually, think of Tana not as being flexible. Actually, I feel it more rigid with the node structure.
Interesting.
Yeah, depends relative to what as well. But good. All right.
I think for Thomas, like, I don't know how much you're into the super tags, but to me that adds another level of you can just work from here today, and then you can write stuff, and then you can tag them, and that feels very flexible. Like you can, and then you can also build the super tags over time, or make it very simple or very complex, or yeah. So I think that aspect adds a new dimension to the flexibility, I think.
Yes. I saw Glenn's metaphor or analogy there. I think of it as unloading my groceries out onto the countertop of my kitchen. Once they're all organized, can start doing things with it. That's exactly right. So yes, a lot of rabbit holes in Tana, which is great. Okay, and yes, I recognize we're at an hour and 5 minutes, so I think we should wrap it up here, Theo. Thanks for participating in our first session. We're going to do more of these, and we'd also love some feedback, and we'll send them out a questionnaire to you all, as well as a recording, so you can watch it in your own time and at your own speed. So appreciate you all coming in today, and also looking for feedback on what the next session should be on, if there are particular
I've
features.
seen some things in the chat already.
Great.
I think there's a lot of good ones to do. And thanks for all the activity in the chat. That was really great to see.
Yeah, excellent. Awesome work, Theo. Thank you as well. And thanks to you all. Have a good rest of your day, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.